Ethan Hale had not planned to buy a house on the edge of nowhere. It happened slowly, the way big changes often did. After 12 years working contracts on crowded orbital stations, listening to engines hum and people argue through thin metal walls, he wanted silence. He wanted land that did not move. He wanted a sky that stayed in one place. The frontier world of Lyris 9 offered that. The planet sat far from major trade routes. Its air was clean, its soil rich, and its population small. Most settlers lived near the main settlement dome, but there were old properties farther out, left behind by early colonists who had given up or moved on. One of those properties was a small house near a river valley. The price was strangely low. The agent explained it with a nervous laugh. The land, he said, had stories. Locals avoided the river. Some said it made machines fail. Others said voices could be heard at night. The early settlers believed it was cursed. Ethan had smiled and signed the papers. He did not believe in curses. He believed in exhaustion, fear, and people making up reasons to stay together in safe places. He wanted distance. The house was solid, built from stone and reinforced alloy with a wide porch and solar panels that still worked. The river was close, winding through trees with silver-blue leaves that shimmered in the light. It was perfect. On his first morning, Ethan woke early. The sun rose slowly, casting pale gold light across the valley. Birds he did not recognize called to one another. The air smelled clean, sharp, and alive. He brewed coffee and stood on the porch, feeling something he had not felt in years: peace. After unpacking the basics, Ethan decided to explore his land. The property records showed the river marked as a natural boundary. He followed a narrow trail through tall grass and low trees. The sound of flowing water grew louder as he walked. Then he heard voices. Ethan stopped. They were not human voices. The tones were too smooth, the rhythm unfamiliar. They sounded like speech, but layered as if more than one note existed in each word. At first, he thought it might be local wildlife. Some species mimicked sounds, but this was too organized, too deliberate. He moved carefully, stepping softly. He did not draw his weapon. He had one like all frontier settlers, but his hand stayed away from it. Curiosity pulled him forward, slow and cautious. The trees thinned near the riverbank. Ethan saw them. 3 figures stood in the shallow water where the river widened and slowed. They were clearly not human. Their skin shimmered with a faint, natural pattern like light moving under clear stone. Their builds were slender but strong, their movements fluid. Their clothing rested on smooth rocks near the shore, made of materials Ethan did not recognize. They were bathing, washing dust and travel from their bodies, unaware they were being watched. Ethan froze. His heart pounded, not with desire but with shock. He had lived among dozens of alien species during his contracts, but this was different. This was private. This was unguarded. This was not meant to be seen. He took a step back. A branch snapped under his boot. One of the aliens turned sharply, her eyes locked onto his position. They were large, reflective, and intelligent. She made a sharp sound, and the others reacted instantly, moving together with practiced speed. Ethan raised his hand slowly, even though he was still partially hidden. "I'm sorry," he said softly, even though he knew they might not understand. "I didn't know anyone was here." The aliens stared. Their expressions were hard to read, but fear was clear in their posture. One reached for something near the rocks. Another stepped slightly in front of the others. Ethan backed away further, putting distance between them and himself. He turned and walked back into the trees, slow and visible, showing he meant no harm. Only when he was far enough away did he stop. His hands were shaking. Back at the house, Ethan locked the door, more out of habit than fear. His mind raced. Aliens living openly on his land, bathing in the river, hiding from the settlement. That explained the stories. The voices. The fear. They were refugees. That night, Ethan did not sleep well. He kept replaying the moment in his mind, wondering if he had already ruined everything. He did not contact authorities. He did not report anything. He knew how that would end. He had seen too many rescues turn into relocations, imprisonments, or worse. In the early hours of the morning, movement sensors near the house activated. Ethan sat up in bed, alert. He checked the feed. 3 figures stood at the edge of his property, just beyond the light from the porch. They were dressed now, cloaked in garments that blended with the environment. They had come to him. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped outside. He left his weapon inside. He stood on the porch, hands visible, posture calm. The aliens approached slowly. Up close, he could see more detail. Faint markings ran along their arms and faces, glowing softly in the dark. Their eyes reflected the porch light. They looked tense, ready to flee or fight. One of them stepped forward. She activated a small device at her throat. After a brief crackle, a voice emerged, translated into careful, accented English. "You are the human who owns this land." "Yes," Ethan replied. "My name is Ethan." There was a pause. The three exchanged glances, speaking in their own language too quickly for the translator to follow. "You saw us at the river," the speaker said. "I didn't mean to," Ethan said. "I left as soon as I realized." That seemed to matter. Their posture shifted slightly, though they remained cautious. "We believed humans were dangerous," another said, her voice quieter. "The stories say you take what you find." Ethan shook his head. "Some do, most don't. I just wanted a quiet place to live." Silence followed. Finally, the first speaker nodded. "We are called the Scifi. We are hiding." Ethan had guessed as much. "From who?" "Hunters," she said. "They claim our kind as property." Ethan felt anger rise in his chest, slow and steady. He kept his voice calm. "You're safe here." "I won't tell anyone." That was the moment everything changed. The Scifi did not relax fully, but something shifted. They had expected lies, perhaps, or conditions. They had expected fear. They had not expected a promise given so simply. They stayed only a short while that night, long enough to explain that the river sustained them, that it was part of their biology, and that leaving it would weaken them. They asked nothing else. When they left, Ethan sat on the porch for a long time, staring at the dark river valley. He understood now why the land had been cheap, and why it had been waiting. Far above the planet, unseen by any sensor Ethan owned, a signal flickered briefly in deep space. Someone was searching. Morning came slowly to the valley, wrapped in pale mist rising from the river. Ethan had slept little. His mind kept turning over the same thoughts again and again. The Scifi were real. They were hiding. And by choosing silence, he had already taken a side. He made breakfast but barely tasted it. Instead, he reviewed his security systems, expanding sensor range toward the river without making it obvious. He did not want to spy on them, only to know if danger came. He adjusted power levels, masked emissions, and rerouted data through old civilian protocols that would not flag attention. By midday, the valley seemed calm. Too calm. Ethan worked outside, repairing a section of fencing that had fallen years ago. He wanted to appear normal like any other isolated settler. Frontier worlds survived on looking boring. As he worked, he felt eyes on him, not threatening, not hidden well enough to be hostile. He spoke without turning around. "You don't have to hide." There was a pause, then soft movement in the grass. The three Scifi stood several meters away. They watched him closely, clearly uncertain if approaching in daylight was wise. Their skin markings were dimmer now, less luminous under the sun. They looked tired. Ethan set his tools down and stepped back slowly. "You can come closer if you want, or not, your choice." That mattered to them, choice. They approached, stopping a few steps away. The one who had spoken most the night before seemed to be their leader. Her translator activated again. "You did not report us," she said. It was not a question. "No," Ethan replied. "I said I wouldn't." "In your culture," she said carefully, "promises are often conditional." Ethan shrugged. "Some people break them, I don't." Silence followed, heavier than before. "We are called Errol, Senna, and Thierry," the leader said, placing a hand on her chest, then gesturing to the others. "I am Errol." "Nice to meet you," Ethan said. "All of you?" They did not smile, but their posture eased slightly. They stayed longer this time, not inside the house but near the porch. They explained more about themselves, slowly, choosing words with care. The Scifi were semi-aquatic, their bodies dependent on certain minerals found in running water. Long exposure away from rivers weakened them. The galaxy knew this. That knowledge had been used against them. They had once lived openly, trading, learning, sharing culture. Then came the collectors. A powerful faction that believed rare species should be controlled, not allowed to choose their own future. The Scifi were valuable. Their biology allowed them to survive extreme environments. They were seen as assets. They had run for years. "Why this planet?" Ethan asked. Errol looked toward the river. "It reminds us of home, and humans are feared." That stung a little, but Ethan understood. "Feared can be useful." "Yes," Errol said, "but also dangerous." They left again before evening, slipping back into the trees like water flowing downhill. Ethan watched them go, feeling the weight of responsibility settle more firmly on his shoulders. That night the sensors picked up something new. High-altitude movement, silent, controlled. Ethan frowned, pulling up more data. A ship, small but advanced, had entered orbit briefly before slipping into a masked trajectory. It did not broadcast any civilian codes. Hunters. He did not panic. Panic wasted time. Instead, he began preparing. Over the next 2 days, Ethan changed the valley without making it obvious. He reprogrammed old agricultural drones to mimic wildlife. He set up signal noise generators disguised as broken equipment. He mapped terrain, noting narrow passes, soft ground, places where sound carried poorly. He also went to the river. This time he did not stumble into anything. He announced himself from far away, standing where he could be clearly seen. The Scifi emerged cautiously. "They are coming," Ethan said simply. Errol's eyes narrowed. "How soon?" "Hours, maybe less." Fear rippled through them, quick and sharp. Senna's markings flared brightly before dimming again. "We cannot fight them," Thierry said. "They have weapons beyond yours." Ethan nodded. "I know, that's why we won't fight them directly." They listened as he explained. Humans, he said, survived not by strength alone, but by refusing to play by their enemy's rules. He spoke of terrain, of delay, of confusion, of buying time. "Can you send a signal?" he asked. Errol hesitated. "Yes, but it will reveal us." "It already has," Ethan replied. "Better to control when and how." They agreed. As the sun dipped low, the Scifi activated an ancient device hidden beneath smooth stones at the riverbank. It pulsed once, sending a tight, encrypted message into space. Not a cry for rescue, a declaration of survival. The hunters arrived just after nightfall. They came quietly, descending beyond the valley, approaching on foot with scanning equipment that cut through darkness like blades. There were 6 of them, tall and armored, their movements precise. They expected prey, not resistance. The first trap activated without warning. The ground beneath 2 hunters gave way, dropping them into a shallow ravine filled with loose rock and mud. Not deadly, just inconvenient. The valley came alive with noise. False signals erupted from every direction. Sensors reported dozens of life signs where there were none. The hunters spread out. That was their mistake. Ethan watched from a concealed position, heart steady. He triggered another sequence. Drones lifted from hidden nests, mimicking the Scifi's energy patterns. The hunters pursued them, firing weapons that scorched trees and stone. But not people. The Scifi moved through the river itself, slipping beneath the surface, using currents Ethan could barely sense. They stayed where they were strongest. One hunter broke through the confusion, heading straight for the riverbank. Ethan stepped into view. He stood openly, weapon in hand, but lowered. "You're on private land," he called out. "Turn around." The hunter raised its weapon. Before it could fire, the ground beneath its feet hardened instantly, crystallizing as Ethan triggered a chemical reaction he had prepared earlier. The hunter fell, immobilized but alive. The others regrouped, clearly confused now. This was not how humans were supposed to behave, not reckless, not aggressive, calculated. Above them, engines roared. Human ships dropped from orbit like falling stars. They did not fire immediately. They broadcast authority, law, and presence, the kind that carried weight. The hunters retreated, dragging their immobilized companion. Their mission failed. When silence returned to the valley, Ethan sat down heavily on a rock near the river. The Scifi emerged slowly, their expressions unreadable. Errol approached him. "You could have walked away." Ethan looked at the water. "Yeah, I could have. Why didn't you?" He shrugged. "Because someone had to stand here." The river flowed on, unchanged. But the valley felt different now. It was no longer a hiding place. It was a line drawn. The valley did not return to silence after the hunters fled. It only pretended to. For 2 days, nothing happened. The river flowed as it always had. The wind moved through the silver-blue trees. Birds returned to their normal patterns, but Ethan could feel the change. The land had been noticed. Lines had been crossed, and in the wider galaxy, lines mattered. Human ships remained in high orbit, officially conducting navigation calibration. Unofficially, they were watching. Ethan met with the Scifi near the river at dawn on the 3rd day. Mist curled around their feet as the sun climbed slowly above the trees. Errol, Senna, and Thierry looked stronger now, their markings brighter, their posture more confident. The river had restored them. "They will come again," Senna said quietly. "The hunters do not accept refusal." "I know," Ethan replied. "That's why we need something permanent." Errol studied him. "You mean protection?" "I mean recognition," Ethan said. "If you stay hidden, they'll keep hunting you. If you're seen, if you're known, it becomes harder." Exposure is dangerous, Thierry said. Our history proves that. Ethan nodded. So does isolation. Humans learned that the hard way. They talked for hours, not as frightened refugees and a lone human, but as people facing the same problem. Ethan explained how human law worked, how borders and agreements mattered, how publicity could be a shield. He also explained the risks honestly. There would be attention, questions, fear. The Sali listened. Finally, Errol spoke. We do not wish to be owned, we do not wish to rule, we only wish to live. That's something humans understand very well, Ethan said. The decision was not made lightly, but it was made. That night the Sali activated the river beacon again. This time the signal was open, translated, and clear. A declaration of sapience, refuge request, and location sent through recognized galactic channels. The kind that could not be ignored. The response was immediate. Within hours, ships arrived. Not hunters, observers, diplomats, journal vessels, human authority cruisers marked with symbols that meant law, not conquest. The valley filled with light. Ethan stood on his porch as the first landing craft touched down in a clearing near the house. Officers stepped out, calm and professional. Cameras hovered at a respectful distance. No one raised a weapon. A woman in a dark uniform approached Ethan. Her rank insignia marked her as a senior liaison. "Ethan Hale," she said, "you've caused quite a stir." He smiled faintly. "Wasn't my goal." She looked past him toward the river. "You did the right thing." The Sali emerged together, standing openly on the riverbank. They did not hide their markings. They did not bow. They stood as they were. The first meeting was tense but controlled. Translators worked constantly. Questions were asked. Rights were discussed. The Sali explained their history, their biology, and the reasons they had run. Human representatives listened, recorded, and verified. What mattered most was not sympathy. It was evidence. The hunters had violated multiple treaties by operating within human-controlled space. They had used coercion, force, and attempted abduction. Humans did not like that. Not because they were noble, but because rules mattered. And once rules were broken, humans responded. A temporary protection zone was declared around the valley and river. Patrols increased. Sensors were upgraded. The Sali were officially recognized as a free sapient species under human protection, pending wider galactic review. The hunters did not return. Weeks passed. Life in the valley changed, but it did not become crowded. Human authorities respected the land. Structures were placed carefully, designed to blend into the environment. Scientists visited, but only with permission. The river remained central, untouched, and clean. Ethan's house became a meeting point. Not a command center, but a place where people talked. Humans came with curiosity, not control. The Sali shared knowledge selectively, teaching humans about river ecosystems, mineral balance, and sustainable coexistence. Trust grew slowly, like roots pushing through stone. One evening, Ethan sat on the porch, watching the river glow faintly under the stars. Errol joined him, sitting on the edge of the steps. They had grown comfortable with silence. "You changed our future," Errol said after a long pause. Ethan shook his head. "No, you chose it." "I just didn't get in the way." She considered that. "Most would have." "Yeah," he said, "probably." News spread beyond Lyris 9. Other hidden species paid attention. Stories moved faster than ships. Humans, once feared as unpredictable, began to be known for something else. They were dangerous, not because they conquered, but because once they decided someone deserved to stand freely, they would argue, negotiate, document, and if necessary, fight entire systems to make it so. The Hunters' organization faced sanctions, trade routes closed to them. Bounties placed not on individuals but on illegal practices. The galaxy watched as humans applied pressure not with fleets but with rules backed by force. Months later, the valley held a quiet gathering. No speeches, no banners. Just shared food, soft music, and the sound of the river. Humans and Sali sat together, different but not divided. Ethan looked around and felt something settle inside him. This was home, not because he owned the land, but because he had shared it. Far above, ships passed through the stars, carrying stories of a human who bought a cheap house near a cursed river and found neighbors instead of solitude. And a galaxy learned once again why humans were never just another species. They were a choice.